How's everybody? Yeah, that's an active time in the School of Music, isn't it? Yeah. Why are you all sitting in the back? Move up here. Move up here. Come on, let's move up closer. This is going to be conversational. Okay, I don't have any real announcements other than to go through the calendar a bit, because we have a bunch of things coming up that I want to draw your attention to and make sure that you're thinking about for your own calendar. So the band leaves on tour tomorrow, which is a Convo event for those of you that are going on the tour, but there are also two options for the rest of you if you'd like to come out and support the band. Everybody listening, please? Our first concert is in Lakewood at Shepherd of the Hills Presbyterian Church, where my wife is a music minister. That's tomorrow night. If you come and take a program and put your name on it, give it to me, you'll get a Convo credit. Or you could come on Sunday late afternoon. This is at 5 o'clock at Applewood Baptist. That's our final concert as we come back into town. So if you'd like to get Convo credit, those of you who are not in the band, you can do that. And also support your friends here. A week from today is for our Convo is our last sectional, and just keep that in mind. Also on Sunday, March 4th, the Shuffle Student Masterclass is going to happen here at 3 o'clock, and Dean Taylor said something about that last time. Do you want to say anything about it again this time? You want to say any more?
Shuffle's coming on Sunday is that the 4th?
Sunday the 4th.
At 3 o'clock.
Yep.
It'll be kind of a workshop concert. They're not going to do a concert for us because they will just done a concert like cultural. Their intent is to come and to sing a few things for you, have you be able to ask questions about how they do what they do. Why are you looking at me?
You should turn around. We wanted to keep this a little folks here today, so we thought we'd install a fireplace.
And it should be a great time actually to hear how you can be creative as a musician. They're a very interesting group, very eclectic in their ability to create and recreate styles and songs on the spot is really, really amazing. So you'll want to come in here and just see what they do, how they do it, and ask questions. They'll give you some great ideas. Okay.
Great, thank you. On Monday, March 5th, some of our Pi Kappa Lambda student members are going to be giving some presentations, so that'll be a cool thing, led by some of your peers there. Speaking of some of your peers, let me just say, what a great job on the musical, everybody. Wow. I'm looking around and many, maybe not even most of you were involved, so it was really an honor to be a part of that and see you guys do your thing. That was great. Back to the calendar. Tuesday, March 6th, we have a really special thing happening on Tuesday, March 6th in the evening. I think most of you know that Dean Taylor sings with a very fine quartet called Legacy. They have traveled the world. They've been to Cuba, South Korea a bunch of times, Australia, and all over the U.S. and churches and that sort. This is a fantastic group, everybody, and a big part of Dean Taylor's professional life, and they're going to do a concert here on Tuesday night, March 6th. You do not want to miss that. Thursday, March 8th, Lakewood Symphony has a concert. That's a Convo event. I've added one, and I think I sent a notice about this. On Friday, March 9th, many of you are involved in kind of an exchange concert with Travis Academy from Texas. If you are involved in that in the band or choir, you will get Convo credit for that. If you're not, we're doing a little afternoon concert at 2:30 at Professor Dukeshire's church, Red Rocks Baptist Church. That's where we're doing all this. If you'd like to come and get Convo credit as an audience member, we're trying to get as many people as we can to be in the audience besides the student performers. At this point, that's going to be our audience. On Monday, March 12th, during Convo, the Denver Brass will have the entire session, which is great. Tuesday, March 13th, Dr. Ibar and Professor Husbands, our guitar faculty, are doing a joint recital with guests. And yeah, go ahead.
I'd like to say something about that too. That particular, it's not going to be a faculty recital the way you think of faculty recitals. It's going to be more of a concert. We've titled it "The Many Voices of the Guitar," and Dr. Husbands and her husband will be doing. See how I did that? You're paying attention. Good. They will focus on flamenco and classical guitar, and then the second half will have everything to do with jazz and Latin music and all the other things that Isidro is so incredible about. And he'll have a band with him. It'll be a great concert event, really, more than a recital. And so it's being called the Many Voices of the Guitar. So it'll be great fun on that night.
If this makes any difference, I'm playing on that as well, so it's really not just the guitar. Dr. Ibar has many dimensions to his music making, so you're going to hear lots of that. Friday, March 16th is the Colorado Symphony concert that we are making available as a Convo event. A few of you have already emailed me. If you'd like to get a ticket, just send me an email. We'll charge your account. It's $13.20. That's going to be Shostakovich Symphony number 11 and the Emperor Concerto number 5 by Beethoven. On Sunday, March 18th, is Rebecca Maritsky's performance project at 3 in the afternoon. I'm just going to do March here, which is a lot. On Monday, March 19th, we have our first open student recital, and the choirs leave the next day on tour. There is one of the ensemble events that Rebecca has talked about. That's on Saturday evenings. There's one of those on Saturday, March 24th, which is technically spring break, but if you go, you can get a combo credit. And I think that's as far as I'm going to go on the combo calendar. It's all available, of course, online, but I want to be sure that we highlighted all those things. Any other announcements? Or questions or announcements? So this summer, I got an email from Dr. Neeson. He said, I have this idea for a convo. What if we had the faculty talk about what professional organizations they belong to? And I thought that was one of the nerdier convo suggestions of all time. But I started to think about it, and I have a handful of regrets professionally, and one of them, and this is a whopper, is that I was not involved in professional organizations until quite late in my career, like maybe just the last 10 or 12 years, and I missed so much in terms of my own professional development and networking that I have just had great benefits from in the last few years. As I thought about it, I thought, I wish somebody had preached this sermon to me when I was an undergraduate and really stressed to me which organizations I should consider, what are the advantages, what are the benefits, what could I even benefit from as a student or a brand new graduate from college. So the more I thought about it, the more I realized this was really important. So that's the focus of our time here. Today we'll have time for questions, maybe a few other things about professional development. But the main thing we want to talk about is the various professional organizations we belong to, what they're like, and why we do it, why we decide to do that, because none of them are free. So who'd like to go first? Let me open in prayer, and then we'll get started. Father, thank you for this gathering. Thank you for the run of the musical that was just completed. What a tremendous thing. We just bless your name and your presence for just filling that experience in so many ways. And Lord, I just am really grateful for that. We pray now for the band tour that starts tomorrow and all the other events that continue to unfold. Lord, deliver us from unnecessary busyness. There's a lot of things we have to do, but Lord, help us to really walk with you. Help us with our anxiety, with our health, Lord. We are reminded of our limitations, and when we get busy, help us to turn to you during those times. Lord, thanks for the time now for these friends and colleagues up here. I pray that you would bless our conversation. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, since I was nerdy enough to suggest this idea, I guess I'm going to go first. So I happen to belong to some of the nerdier of the nerdy organizations, and let me just talk about how nerdy they are. So the first one is the the American Educational Researchers Association, and one of the reasons I joined that is that they do a lot of what Mr. Dorn just talked about, is that they help early career people who are researchers, and if you're an ed student, a music ed student, this also really applies to you. They have grant money, they have opportunities for professional development, they have training sessions for how to do research, they have job openings, postings that are limited to their organization, so they're very focused in what they're promoting. And then they also have a gigantic conference that happens once a year. This year it's in New York City, and it's several thousand educators from all over the world. It's not just American, they're located in the United States, but this is an international organization. And I should say that a lot of American professional organizations are international. They have an international scope, and we'll talk about some of those later, I'm sure. But anyway, in the conference you can meet with your tribe, as I like to call it. That a lot of professional organizations, they allow you to find other people who are doing things very similar to what you may be wanting to go out and do later on in your career, or even early on in your career, and talk with people who are already doing what you want to do, and find out what problems they had getting into it, what pitfalls they encountered along the way, what type of other organizations that they collaborated with that helped them. So from a networking point of view, it's really, really important to, no matter what your background is, to find your tribe, to find that group of people that are already doing what you want to be doing musically or artistically, and get them to help you, because they can give you access to resources, talk about ways in which to get you involved, and show you various things, whether that's in music technology, or music production, or on your instrument, or in your academic background. So the other big organization that I belong to is the College Music Society. And that, again, as the title refers to, is faculty members from college music schools. And they also have several student chapters. So if you are wanting to get involved with an organization like the College Music Society as a student, you can join, get a greatly reduced annual membership, get access to all of their information, find out about their conferences worldwide. They have a really interesting world conference that happens in places like South America and Australia and all sorts of fun places like that. And again, network, find out what other students in music schools around the country are talking about, and what they're considering as far as their musical careers, and what they've discovered, what their hopes, their fears, their dreams, their prayers are. It's really, really, really helpful to get involved with those sort of organizations. So that's my piece.
Could you give both of those again?
Yeah.
You guys maybe give, you might want to write some of these down. If one of them strikes you as something you're interested, write down the name. And I'll also compile a list and see if you want to mess with it.
So American Educational Research Association, that's probably more for the music ed people. There's a lot of papers that get published every year, and conference proposals about music and arts education, and promoting how important it is for music and arts to be in the educational realm. And that's another thing that a lot of these arts organizations do, is they advocate. So that's the AERA, or American Educational Research Association, and CMS, the College Music Society. Those are the two big ones.
All right, so presently I'm involved in choral associations. In times past, I've been part of different piano organizations, accompanist organizations, things like that. I'm in one now. It is actually a free one, just called the Pianists of Denver, and it's one that we get to know each other as accompanists and soloists, and we share things on there when we need a sub for a rehearsal, and many different church rehearsals and different things like that, so we sub around things like that. But choral-wise, from many different levels, and the biggest thing for me is the association factor, the networking of sharing literature, of sharing rehearsal techniques, of sharing programming ideas, and then just we in our own choral direction can be a bit nerdy at times too, just in a different way. So some of those for me, the big one is ACDA, which is American Choral Directors Association. It's a large one, and it does stretch around the world, even though it says American. We have many from North America and South America is kind of how it ties together. And they meet every 2 years for a national meeting. This next one upcoming is in Kansas City next year in 2018. But the nice thing with that is that there are regional opportunities as well on the off years. So I'm not able to go this year, but it's in Oklahoma City next week, or the week after in 2 weeks. And it's broken up, there are 6 different regions in the United States, and they're broken up by region, and you have your own every other year from the national. But then also each year it breaks down into the local, which we have each July right here in Denver. For our local one, it's usually held at Bethany Lutheran, large church down on 285. It's 2 or 3 days, bring in world-renowned conductors and educators to talk and to teach. So that's ACDA, American Choral Directors Association. I'm also a part of NCCO, which is the National Collegiate Choral Conductors Organization. And what's unique about that and fun about that is it's only open to those who have a choral conducting position at a university or a college. Whereas American Choral Directors Association, ACDA, is open to middle school, high school, elementary, church, community, you name it. If you work with somebody that sings, you can be part of that organization, whereas the other is just, NCCO is just collegiate choral. They have also conventions every 2 years. This year is in Baton Rouge, and I don't remember where. The next one is at the University of Maryland in 2019. And it is mainly, they bring in some educators, but it's more of a college program showcase. It's full, mostly, I would say probably 80% of it is performances by collegiate choir groups, singing for each other, those type of things. Another one I'm part of is the World Choral Organization, which is, as it sounds, they also have meetings every 3 years, and the next one for them is in New Zealand in 2020. And it's a 2-week-long thing that goes on, and it's world music. It's stuff from everywhere, from the depths of South America to the depths of Africa to the new stuff coming out of Scandinavia, etc. So it's strictly focused around world music. Don't hear very many American composers at that one. So it's neat to have the eye opening for that. So those are choral ones for me.
Awesome. I'll keep mine brief because I feel like it probably doesn't apply to a lot of people in this room. But the one that I am part of is the Dramatists Guild of America, and it is primarily an organization that supports and protects people who write for the theater. Playwrights, people who write musicals, composers for the theater, things like that. And probably the primary thing that it provides is it has a panel of lawyers who will look over contracts for you, which is a really big deal, especially when you're first starting out and you might not necessarily have an agent yet, to say like, hey, there's a theater that's going to do my show, and this is the contract they gave me, and they'll look over it and say, oh, this is standard, or like, oh, this is not right, they shouldn't be doing that to you. So it's a nice thing that they have to kind of protect you as you're going out into the world. And also, if you end up in a situation where you find out like, oh, there's a theater that's doing my play and they never contacted me, or there's a theater that's doing my play and they're cutting scenes or they're adding jokes or like things that you can't do, they're the ones that you can reach out to that will send a cease and desist to that theater, and they kind of have the power to say, nope, you can't do that, this work is protected. They won't negotiate contracts for you, but they will be the ones to kind of put the kibosh on things that shouldn't be happening. And in addition to that, they often offer discount tickets to shows that are happening around the country. They provide rehearsal space and studio space if you want to do a reading of a show and you want to have a really nice, beautiful room to do it in. That's something that they offer. They put out a magazine several times a year that's sort of information about what's happening in American theater and all the productions that are being done by the playwrights that are part of the Guild. There's something else I was going to say. They also have grant money, they have fellowships, it's just a really good thing to be part of, and they have representatives in almost every state. So when I moved to Denver from New York, I reached out to the representative here, the Denver representative, and I said, hey, I just moved here, can I have coffee with you and ask you about the Denver theater scene for playwrights? And he was like, yeah, absolutely. So it was a neat way to jump in and get to network in a bunch of different ways. And I think part of a big piece of it is it just makes you, being able to put that on your resume presents you as a professional playwright, right? I'm not a hobby playwright, I'm a professional playwright. I pay dues to this thing, and it's important, and it's what I do. And as a result of that, a lot of places that you would submit your work to would like to charge you a fee and say, yes, you can send your play to us, and it will cost you $20 to have us read it, unless you're a Dramatist Guild member, because the Dramatist Guild goes, that's not cool, you don't have to pay to have your work read. So if you send them a copy of your card, then you don't have to pay the fee. So it's a nice organization to kind of take care of playwrights. And there are other organizations for actors and musical theater performers that I don't know quite as much about because I haven't gone down that road as much, but if that's something you're interested in, let me know and I can give you kind of some basics of those as well.
I'm curious for those of you up here, one of the things that spins off of all these organizations is conferences, which Dr. Lisa talked about. How many of you here have either presented a workshop at a conference or presented a performing group at a conference? Okay. So that's the other thing, is when you're part of an organization, not only do you receive, but as you gain experience and feel like you have something unique to contribute, you can contribute either by presenting or being on a council or a committee work or that sort of thing. So being a generalist, trumpet, jazz, conducting, and I have a counseling degree. At one time, I belonged to 7 organizations at the same time. So I'm way nerdier than you are. But like I said, I came to this late. How many of you right now belong to a professional organization? What do you belong to, Megan?
NAFME.
Okay, can you tell them what that is?
It's the National Association for Music Education.
Okay, and we have a chapter here. I think all of our music ed students belong to that. That's a real important one for anybody who wants to be a public school teacher, is to belong to NAFME. That automatically enables you to go to the CMEA conference, the Colorado Music Educators Association conference. So I belong to that one. Rebecca, what do you belong to?
American Harp Society and World Harp
Okay.
Society.
Anybody else belong? Not to that necessarily, but I don't belong to that one. I'm a member of the International Trumpet Guild. I joined that about 10 years ago, much to my shame. The co-founder of that organization was Charles Gorham back in the early 1970s. That's my trumpet professor in college, and I didn't join until 10 years ago. And it is absolutely the nerdiest thing I belong to. I get the Trumpet Guild publication, which is beautiful. I've not been to the conference. I'm hoping to go this summer, but if you can imagine, there are something like 8,000 members of the International Trumpet Guild. I also belong to the Jazz Education Network. I used to belong to the International Association of Jazz Education. They closed their doors a few years ago because they had financial troubles brought on by disorganization and dishonesty. Leave it to the jazz musicians to go broke. But that's what happened. Like the phoenix rising from the ashes, some very fine jazz educators took it upon themselves. So I'm actually a founding member of the Jazz Education Network. That is a fantastic organization. If you have any interest in jazz, you just sign up. I think it's $60 a year, and they do an annual conference. I went to the one in New Orleans in January of 2017, and it was just off the charts. You're walking the halls with these incredible jazz musicians. It's improv clinics, it's how to teach jazz, it's concerts, and this one goes, unlike some of the other conferences I've been to, this one goes till 1 in the morning every night. I think there's 5 or 6 concerts after dinner every night. And that's always in January, right before classes start here. I try to go to that conference every other year. That's the main benefit for me, is just the conference. I also belong to the Colorado Bandmasters Association. How many of you participated in either all-state jazz band, maybe auditioning for that, or marching band competitions? All right, a handful of you? Okay. Colorado Bandmasters Association administers the marching band competition in the fall, as well as several concert band festivals in March and the all-state jazz program. This is mainly for high school and middle school directors, but I think all of the college band directors belong to it, and they do a great service to band music education. I also belong to the Collegiate Band Directors National Association. That's really only appropriate if you're a college band director, but that's a great network of people to belong to. And I also go, this is not an organization, but I attend the Midwest Clinic every couple of years. And that's just a conference. I was there in December. There were about 17,000 band, orchestra, and jazz directors at this conference, and it is unbelievable. You probably know the composer names: Frank DeKelly, Julie Giroux, Philip Sparks, some of those. They are wandering the halls. You can go talk to them and ask about their latest piece. And that's the only conference I know that has that kind of appeal, that they all exhibit there, they have booths, they want to sell their music to band directors and orchestra directors. So those are mine.
Let's see, I belong also to the NAFNI organization, which, again, anyone who's a music educator should be part of that, but it has lots of great information for those of you that don't necessarily want to be a public school teacher. That's a great organization to belong to, whether or not you'll be in public schools, if you're going to be in private schools, or even in private teaching. It's a great organization to be a part of. It tells you so much about not only the resources that are available, but also great articles about actually how to teach and those sorts of things. So even if you're not in music education, that would be a really, really one for you to consider. Excuse me. The professional organizations I belong to are the National Association of Teachers of Singing, NATS. And that particular organization does several things. It sponsors auditions around twice a year, both regional and district auditions, where students such as you can sign up to audition. You're adjudicated. There's prize money involved for those that are placed first, second, and third, whatever divisions you're in. So it holds competitions annually, as well as meets regularly, of course. They have a national conference as well. And also, in support of just teaching singing, they offer lots of resources on even how to set up your studio, how to bill for your studio, how to handle tax issues for your studio, all those things that a private teacher would need to be able to do to have a successful private studio. They offer resources for all of those things. And they offer networking. You're listed on their pages, and if someone moves to an area and they're looking for a voice teacher, they easily can look up that organization, find the voice teachers, and get signed up. And I've even received inquiries from students that obviously I didn't take, but from students that wanted to study because I was listed as a member of the National Association of Teachers of Singing. So it's a great organization if you are interested in having a private studio and teaching voice in the future. I'm also a member of an organization called AGMA. That's American Guild of Musical Artists. It's a professional performance organization. It tends to represent classical singers. It is similar to some of the theater things that Jenny would be familiar with, Actors Equity and the Screen Actors Guild. This is kind of that organization that governs those that are involved in opera productions and so forth. They do negotiate contracts. They have a certain requirement of pay scale, that if you're singing a particular role, it's slotted at a certain pay scale, and you're guaranteed that that's the minimum that you would make. They have very strict hours, and so as someone who's involved cannot rehearse longer than a certain number of hours a particular day. They have guidelines on days off between performances, all kinds of things like that. They care for the health of the performer. And then they also serve to provide health insurance coverage as a group, as well as life insurance coverage. So some of the other benefits that if you belong to a corporate organization that you would get, this is something that they also help to develop, and so that those people that are basically self-employed as performers have an opportunity to be in a group like that as well. So that's AGMA, American Guild of Musical Artists. There are several other organizations too that I'm part of almost by default. One is the National Association of Schools of Music. That's an organization. Obviously, we belong there. We're a member institution of that, but I'm also an individual member, and most heads of music schools are involved in it. So it's a conference we go to annually, learn great things about how to organize your music unit, as well as new thoughts and current trends in music education at the higher ed level. So that's and I know that there are some some social organizations as well. I became a member of Phi Nu Alpha Symphonia when I was in college, which is kind of more of a social organization for men in music. It promotes American music and has a competition regularly for compositions, and that's a national organization. We do not have a chapter here. If there are those of you that are interested in that, I'd be glad to help to sponsor a chapter of that if you have that. Ladies, there are those that are strictly for women as well, although nowadays they've kind of started to say, well, it's not really good to have one just for women and one just for men, and so if you'd like to be in this one rather than that one, there's a lot of leeway in that. But there are some social type music organizations like that perhaps that's something that we want to consider for you. It would be that. I'm also a member of Omicron Delta Kappa, that leadership honorary that some of you are involved in.
As a composer, we don't have a guild. We have a musician guild, and they're very important, and we do talk about those in the music business class. But one of the memberships I have is ASCAP, the American Society of Composers, Artists, and Publishers. It's considered one of the three pros, the performing rights organizations, and there's ASCAP, BMI, and CSAC. How many are familiar with ASCAP? I better see some hands here. Okay, good. How many have already enrolled in ASCAP? So we've got one. What does ASCAP do? ASCAP, when I release an album, when I release a soundtrack or write music for a film or for a television program, ASCAP tracks that and pays me. If I wasn't a member of ASCAP, I would not get paid. I get paid for writing the music, I get paid for the commission, but ASCAP actually tracks that. Typically, you sign up for ASCAP in two ways. One as the composer and as the publisher, so that you can own 100% of the piece of music. And it's significant. Most composers make much more money via their ASCAP royalty checks than they do by the actual commission. I probably triple, quadruple what I got paid for the commission just in the royalty stream. So something to really consider if you're a composer or if you're releasing albums in music like Nicholas is and others. Another organization is NATIS, which is the National Academy of Television Arts and Sciences. This is if you're writing music for television specifically, and you want to enter for an Emmy. If you want to win an Emmy or be nominated for an Emmy, you would join NATIS. NATIS is not a peer-driven organization like the Grammys, for instance, where we all vote for each other. With NATIS, they have boards set up, and the boards decide who is nominated and who wins the Emmy. So it's not quite as social as, say, ASCAP, which ASCAP does. We have tons of meetings all over the country, all over the world, ways to get plugged in. NATIS is a little different. And then the other organization I'm a member of is the Recording Academy, which is for the Grammys. Now, when you become a member of the Recording Academy, you have to sort of apply for it, and after you garnered a few credits, you can become a member. And the cool thing is we actually vote for the Grammys. We get to vote for each other, and it's a huge, wonderful social club. We have parties all over the country. At any given time, I can go to a Grammy party, and it's really, especially if you go to Facebook and you type in Grammys, you're going to come up with like 12 different clubs that are all centered around the Grammys, and you get to meet just incredible people, and it's fun voting for the Grammys. So those are the three that I'm involved in.
Well, I don't know about you, but I am really fascinated, being the last person on this panel, to hear about these different organizations and how we're each so different. We've each got our own specialty. I thought when we started talking about these organizations, we'd all be talking about the same ones, but not at all. And so the organizations I belong to are really quite different, but I'm fascinated by what you're all doing. And I might also say that it is really fun to go to these conferences and meet with people who do the same things that you do. It is a lot of fun. So it's fun, it's great networking. I have gotten quite a few jobs from my connections with my organizations. Either judging, so I judge a lot of little competitions, people have a piano competition, or I've been asked to do a master class, or give presentations for little local groups. So all of those things have been really helpful for me. My main organization is really threefold. The big one is MTNA, Music Teachers National Association. So that's the national organization, and they have a conference once a year. They have competitions. And then under that comes CSMTA, Colorado State Music Teachers Association, and every state has their own organization under MTNA. So Colorado State Music Teachers Association is probably where I'm the most active in terms of having presented there and having fun at the party. We have conference every May or June, end of May, beginning of June. And so the school year has finished, I'm all tired of teaching, and I go to the conference and they get me all excited about teaching. And so there are lots of wonderful presentations at those conferences. I should also say that MTNA also has insurance, health insurance and life insurance. So there are opportunities for helping you as an independent teacher. And that's kind of, I think, the main focus of MTNA and CSMTA. So under CSMTA then comes a local group. So I'm a member of the Foothills Music Teachers Association. Unfortunately, they meet in the middle of the day on Wednesdays, so I can never go to the meetings, but they let me come to the party in August anyway. But that's also a very good group. I mean, networking at the local level, at the state level, and then at the national is a great way to get connected and inspired by other teachers. I mean, it's wonderful to meet other teachers. These organizations all have publications as well. So there's a magazine that comes out, AMT, American Music Teacher. I think we probably get it downstairs. And it's got lots of wonderful articles in it. So that's a set of organizations. You belong to one, you belong to all three. You have to belong to a local organization in order to belong to the Colorado organization, and you have to belong to that to belong to the national one. So it's worth the investment, actually. The dues come as one big package, so you just pay once. And it's also really directed toward the independent teachers. So if you're ever thinking about teaching privately, this is a good organization. They give you support in terms of how to set up your studio and advice on lots of private teaching situations. Because I'm the music history nerd, I belong to a couple of historical organizations. The Westfield Center for Early Music and the Historical Keyboard Society of North America. So those are really nerdy. I mean, I went a couple of years ago to the conference at Cornell University, and it was only people who play the forte piano. So there were like 20 forte pianos there, and they're all different. I mean, it was fascinating. It was, and quite a few harpsichords too. I think I counted 30 different instruments that they had there. It was really wonderful. So you go into this world for a couple of days, which is outside of the normal world, and it's very fun to get out of it when you're done. But so those are my organizations.
So I just wanted to cover a couple of other things that didn't get covered yet. So one of the other reasons to join a professional organization, if you're an instrumentalist, is that a lot of these professional organizations also have instrument insurance. And that's not something that a lot of people think about until you actually need it. And so I also belong to the American String Teachers Association, and they have a wonderful group musical insurance program. And string instruments, as you may know, get a little pricey, so that's extremely helpful as well. And the other thing that the American String Teachers Association does is they have a lot of publications that are designed to help teachers in the public schools as well as private studio teachers figure out what they need to be doing when with their students. So in other words, they have sat down over for months and years, and I know because I've been involved in this process, of designing curriculum or curricula that go all the way from the very, very beginning of this is how you hold the instrument, this way is up, and all the way up to playing the latest concerto with the Philadelphia Orchestra level of artistry, and helping to guide your teaching in such a way that you can help your students develop. So from a professional development point of view, these organizations can be invaluable with giving you the insight and the guidance you need that if you get started doing something, whether it's teaching in the public schools or opening your own studio. And by the way, how many of you are thinking that you might at some point become a private studio teacher? I would have thought there'd be a lot more hands going up, because chances are you will. How many of us have been doing private lessons? Yeah. That's something to think about. So there are resources out there that these professional organizations really help with. And then the last thing, and I promise the very last thing, is that I talked a little bit about advocacy and about how organizations sometimes advocate and help the larger groups. So for instance, a lot of these arts organizations actually have lobbyists. You'll notice that a lot of these organizations are located in places like Reston, Virginia, which happens to be very close to Washington, D.C. And it's because they employ people that go to Washington, D.C. and lobby the government to make sure not to defund music in the public schools and things like that. So it's really important. I actually belong to the policy group of NAFME, and we meet every now and then to talk about what we're going to do to make sure that music continues in the schools. So.
Along those lines of being a private studio teacher, something that I used to be part of and forgot about until I got my job here at CCU, I was part of the Freelancers Union, which is a really great union for people, actors, musicians, teachers, anybody who doesn't work for a big organization that takes care of you, right? And part of that was they would help you figure out your freelancer taxes, which is a nightmare to do by yourself. They have freelancers health insurance. They have special clinics that you can go to as a freelancer. All kinds of things like that. And I remember sitting here as a college student, things like health insurance and taxes don't seem like a big deal until you're about a year out of here, and they're a really big deal. So I would say take note of these organizations that'll help you with those things, because they're gonna be a big deal before very long.
I forgot one organization I'm a member of, CCLI, which is the Christian Copyright Licensing Incorporated. I'll tell you how I discovered it. I was your age when I discovered CCLI. And I know it seems like all of my organizations have to do with making money and winning awards. And that's true. So, see, you know how I discovered? I was leading worship in a church. It was the first church I led worship in. And I remember talking with the secretary, and she said, oh, you know, I'm paying your CCLI bill. I'm like, what is that? She said, well, every year we pay a certain amount depending upon the size of our church, and we pay CCLI, and so every time we use an overhead or we sing a song, back then we were using overheads, or we sing a song, that composer gets paid every time we sing their song. Something clicked in my mind, and I started writing all of the music for my church. And not only did I get paid to be the worship leader, but I get checks from CCLI royalty streams. And so then I began to write music in all of my churches, and I wrote hundreds of worship songs. And you know what? Even though it's been a little while since I've been leading worship, I get checks from all over the world through CCLI from churches that use my music, which for us as Christian musicians, ASCAP and all of the pros, they don't go into our churches. They don't track that. The only organization that tracks your music being used in churches is CCLI, which is something you should really think about, because I thought it was the funniest thing. I'm like, God, is this okay? Am I double dipping? But then it was so cool. I got these checks for doing absolutely nothing but like singing my songs. It was weird. It's just something to think about. CCLI.
I had a thought sitting here that I've never had before related to professional organizations. When you said it's led to some work, I think, without exaggeration, all of the going as a guest clinician, guest conductor, judging in festivals, all of that, I think all of them came about because I was a part of an organization. And over the course of my career, I mean, each one's not that much money, but yeah, it's thousands of dollars over the course of my career and income just by doing judging, clinics, guest conducting, that sort of thing. So that hadn't occurred to me. I'm sure it's more than pays for the dues over time, not the first few years, because the first few years I found I didn't know what I was doing, which was true. So, yeah, good. Other comments or additions to it? You guys have any questions about this?
I was just going to ask, what falls under the label of freelancer?
Yeah, pretty much anything where you don't work for an organization that's providing you like health insurance and benefits. And so the Freelancers Union was actually like pretty big. It was like a lot of artists, but it was also like, I own my own woodworking studio, or I do freelance home repairs, like pretty much anything where you can't point to someone and say, that's my boss, and they provide me benefits, which is going to be probably most people in this room at some point.
Other questions? Anybody out here about the union? Yeah, nobody? Yeah, yes, sir. Do you want to talk about that? I used to, but I'm no longer belonging, so.
So I also belong to the American Federation of Musicians, which is the Musicians Union. And again, that is an organization that is in both the United States and Canada. When I got my start playing in orchestras back in 1930, I belong to the American Federation of Musicians. And what's interesting is that as a member, I can apply for jobs in Canada as a Canadian. I can apply for jobs in the United States, and that's actually how I came to the United States, was I got a job in an American orchestra, so that was kind of interesting. And a lot of Americans get jobs in orchestras in Canada. And the American Federation of Musicians basically is the place that helps sort of advertise the orchestra openings. So in the back of their monthly newsletter, you see all of the current positions in various orchestras and explaining how many concerts they have and what their pay is and things like that. So it's all good to know. They also have a large freelance component, and also offer musical instrument insurance, health insurance, pension benefits. So they take care of that, and also make sure that if you're performing in a concert and it is 28 degrees out, that you have the right to say, I am not going to play in a situation where I might get frostbite or have my lips attached to my mouthpiece to my lips. That's a bad situation. Or I have actually been in the opposite extreme, where I have been playing a concert outside in 103-degree heat in the sun and said, you know what, I can't have my bass sitting here in the sun because the seams are all falling apart, and I'm going to have a nice pile of wood for making a fire in another 10 minutes. And so they help you to make sure that you have, just as you were describing, make sure that you have safe working conditions, safe health conditions, that you're not overworked, things like that. And so the American Federation of Musicians also advocates and does work for making sure that independent artists get recognized. They also have all sorts of agreements with the film industry, which I'm sure Professor Denler can talk a little more about that, to make sure that everybody's happy on both sides of the performing. And no, there's never any happiness. But what ends up happening is, as I often describe, having been in several situations on opposite sides of the table with collective bargaining rights and things like that, as a music director and as a performer and things like that, is you walk away from negotiations like this with everybody a little bit unhappy. And that's usually the way it works out.
Well, I can't let that go by without a comment. So, how many have been in my business class? Does Professor Denler like unions? No. Now, that being said, unions are a good thing, and I always preface my hatred of unions with that statement. Unions, as a composer for film and television, unions are my nemesis. Because I have to pay your union dues, and I have to pay residuals to you guys, which is why I go to Europe when I record my scores, because they're non-union. But that being said, unions are super important, and honestly, I wish I had a union. I wish I had a composers union. We've never been able to get that off the ground. We tried to join with WGA, and we couldn't. There are certain areas, and those of you who've been to business class, you know this, that you cannot get the gig if you are not a member of the union. That includes a lot of theater productions. That includes almost every symphony in the United States, even a lot of the jazz productions. If you're not a member of the union, for instance, the Screen Actors Guild or AFTRA, if you come to my studio and you want to make thousands of dollars doing a quick voiceover, or you want to sing on a jingle that I'm working on, chances are, if it's a high-paying gig, it's a union gig. And I have to hire a union. I cannot hire you. And we're talking the difference between a $200 gig and a $4,000 gig, plus you're going to make $10,000 in residuals later on that year. Unions are super important to be thinking about. It's not a dirty word unless you're in my business class, then it becomes a dirty word. But outside of that, honestly, it's part of the life of being a musician. It really is. Did that help? Did I just like undermine everything we're doing here? Okay.
I was going to add to that too with the musicians union. I have a lot of friends in New York who are composers who their bread and butter primarily comes from doing musical transcriptions for other composers. A lot of composers are so busy, they're like, I don't have time to write sheet music of this. They sing their song into a recorder and they pay someone else to create sheet music. And it's something that if you're not part of the union, they can kind of try to lowball you and be like, you can do this for $20, right? When it's going to take you 10 days to do it. Where if you're in the union, you can say, oh, actually I'm a union musician, and they have to pay you scale. They have to pay you a certain amount. And that ends up, a lot of my composer friends, that's how they pay their bills, is doing that. It's so cute.
Again, that's why I go to Europe to record my story.
What's there stuff going on behind us?
There's a dog.
A dog?
I'm only gonna be
$20 an hour. Just keep that right on the table.
I'm not union.
But that is one of the things that you guys come out of here with, that skill that even a lot of like pretty high profile composers don't have, right? And that's a skill that you can make money off of.
I belong to the musician union at different times. I'm not right now, but the 2 times I did it, one was when I was in Milwaukee, where I grew up, and one was, of all places, Lafayette, Indiana. Lafayette, Indiana had a lot of musician union-sponsored trust fund gigs, where if you wanted to, you could go play. If you wanted to, it paid like $10, but if you were in the union, it paid, I forget what it paid, maybe $90. And the smaller communities, the dues are less. In a city like New York, the dues are high, but the expectation is that you're going to get a lot more work. But it's definitely worth exploring and deciding for yourself if it's worth it to belong.
This is just a quick comment. You can ask the question. I've always been offended by the musicians union because singers aren't invited to be part of that.
Amen. That's my reason too.
Don't look at me. I'm no advocate of the union. But if you would like to, actually, in all seriousness, can we talk? Many of you know Ron Bland, who runs our jazz combo. Ron has been a musicians union officer. I think he is right now, isn't he? Yeah, and really advocates for musicians. And for him, it's crucial for the work that he does, playing shows, playing with the symphony at times when they have a jazz or a pop thing. So anyway, you could talk with Ron about that. He would tell you why you should or why it maybe isn't necessary to join the union. There was a question over here, so I hand up. No? Yeah, Hannah?
I heard about like a piano technician guild, which offers certification for a job like that. It's almost freelancing, you can do it on your own. But whether it's that guild or others, what is the difference between being certified and having an organization or guild behind your name to go teach, to go and do instrument repair?
Yeah, that's a great question.
MTNA also has certification, and I know about the Piano Technicians Guild as well. In certain areas, you can just, they say, hang out a shingle. You know, you can say you're a piano teacher, but you don't have any training, or you're a voice teacher. And so certification behind your name means that you have met certain requirements, whether you have a degree or not. And I know Music Teachers National Association provides certification. It's not so critical for us because, you know, we have a degree or 2 or 3, and we're teaching at a college. But, you know, that's why we get NASM certification for the school, too. So it just gives a little more assurance, credibility, right, that you are qualified to do what you say you're qualified to do. And believe me, I get a lot of piano students here at CCU or even private students who come from a teacher who I'm thinking, what did you learn from that teacher? You know, did you learn anything? And it makes me question the credibility of that teacher. Now, just because you have a certification doesn't mean that you are a good teacher, right? It just means you've had the training. So I think it just puts that behind what you say you can do.
I think our exhortation to you would be, if there are student chapters of any of these organizations, and a lot of them do have student chapters, and the membership dues are cheap, 10, 20 bucks, join now. Join now if there's one that interests you. And if there aren't student chapters, if you can't afford to do it now, do it quickly upon graduation, because it is a great entry port into the profession, or whatever aspect of the profession that you're interested in. And you will find, as Dr. Nietzsche said, kind of your tribe. The International Trumpet Guild Conference, the tradition there has become, if you can imagine this, they open the conference now with a fanfare for trumpets, and all of the conferees bring their trumpet. Doc Severinsen, who used to do the Tonight Show Orchestra back into the early 90s, for the second or third straight year is going to conduct that. Doc is now 90 years old. So I think last year they had 432 trumpet players playing this fanfare. Now that's a sound only a trumpet player could love, right? It was outdoors. So, but that's the tribe. You know, they were all having a great time, I'm sure. Just, you know, cell phone videos going up all week long of that. It really sounded pretty awful, just between you and me. But it's part of the tribe, and you do find people that have common interests, common experiences, and you can learn a lot, and you contribute to the conversation that's going on in your area. So, any other comments that I missed?
Imagine what the International Base Society.
The International Base Society, yeah.
It's starting soon.
There are lots of very specific organizations to belong to.
As I kind of alluded to earlier, there are several that I would call more social type organizations that we could develop chapters of here at the school. If any of you are interested in those or want to know more about it, please let me know. I'd be glad to get more information about Phi Nu Alpha Epsilon, and as I said, I'm a member of the other one that I'm part of. No, I said the first one wrong. It was Mu Phi, and mine is Phi Nu Alpha Symphonia. Anyway, if you're interested in any of those types of things, and they do sponsor events. They sponsor students. They have student scholarships, things that they will do to promote American music. If you're interested in developing any of those chapters, I'd be glad to look into it further and get you some more information.
There are student chapters available for the Jazz Education Network. I think you have to have 10 or even 15 members to form a chapter, but I'd be thrilled to start that if you're interested in jazz. We could certainly look into that, and I do think it's quite cheap.
I just have one quick thing to say about music teachers associations. If you're ever planning to have students in a studio and you want them to have opportunities for performance, like little competitions like our Sonatina Festival, which is held here, it gives you a chance to enter your students in either little competitions or recitals or curriculum for theory. Some of us who've been in those organizations had probably up through theory 2 covered, because we took theory throughout grade school and high school.
Any other questions, comments? Yes.
So it seems like in every area there's a lot of these different organizations to belong to. How do you pick the best ones for what you want to do?
Look at their website. See what they.
Yeah, they all have robust websites.
Yeah, they all have really good websites, and they all discuss what their philosophy is and what sort of things they work towards, and what benefits they have for you as a member. So you just have to do some online shopping. And you know, if there's anyone in particular that any of us have mentioned, just come and talk to us, and we'll be able to give you more detail about any of these organizations.
There's several others that I probably could or should be a part of, but I just kind of had to draw the line in terms of paying the dues for that many. The dues can range anywhere from 60 to, I think the most expensive one for me is now NAFME, which is 130 or 140 a year. So you belong to a few of those, it adds up. But yeah, talk to us. We would have recommendations for you, and you can certainly find out more about the various organizations. There's a music, so I don't know if you've ever thought about instrument repair. There's an instrument repair guild you can belong to and get training and certified on how to do instrument repair. Trombone player I work with, that's his bread and butter daily income.
Music theory, all you music theory people out there, you can meet,
When I was at the Midwest Clinic, which I referenced earlier with all the band directors, I was walking down the hall and I looked in the door and there was this room full of a bunch of old guys, just white hair, old guys just kind of sitting there. It was the John Philip Sousa Society. And I think he was in there too, I don't know. But, I mean, you can get pretty narrow with these organizations and find something that will really serve your interest. If you're into Sousa, you can join a society. So, all right, I think, unless we have further questions, I think we'll probably dismiss there. And thanks for your attention. I hope this was helpful. Feel free to talk to any of us more. Have a good evening.